Being a high school dropout is such a disgrace. I want nothing to do with people from the bottom tier like you.
My brother's fiancée ridiculed me, and her family laughed with her. She was the daughter of a CEO and belittled me for not finishing high school endlessly. With a heavy heart, I pulled out my phone. All right. Let's cancel the contract with your father's company then. What are you talking about? Just then, a phone call came in. What was said during that call left my brother's fiancée and her family in shock. My name is Lawrence Zan. I have an older brother, Cliff, 5 years my senior. Our parents left us in an accident when I was in elementary school and he was in middle school. It was a major car crash that left the vehicle completely wrecked. Tragically, they both passed away at the same time. I was very young and clung to Cliff, but looking back, I realize how much he must have endured. I was stunned when I saw him cry quietly for the first time at Uncle Alan's house, who had taken us in. He always acted so strong and dependable, but seeing his tears, I couldn't bring myself to comfort him and pretended not to notice. I still regret that. Uncle Alan had a wife and a young daughter, and they welcomed us warmly. They treated us like a real family, and it felt incredibly comforting. Cliff was very smart. He passed the bar exam while in college and now works as a successful lawyer. I found my passion and left high school to go abroad. My parents' inheritance covered Cliff's tuition and my travel expenses. Uncle Alan and Aunt Emily took care of our living expenses, leaving my parents' savings and insurance untouched for our education. Despite being the opposite of my brilliant brother, my uncle and aunt fully supported me when I dropped out of high school. I can't thank them enough and hope to repay their kindness someday. One weekend, I wake up to the sound of my phone ringing. Groggily, I reach for my phone on the bedside table and see that it's Cliff calling. It's just after 9 a.m. Hello? He chuckles at my hoarse voice. Still in bed, huh? Bet you partied hard last night. I was working late. Seriously? You worked too hard. Annoyed by his cheerful tone, I sit up. So, what's up? Well, I'm getting married. He clears his throat first and then replies softly, in contrast to his earlier tone. The news wakes me up completely, and I feel a surge of happiness. Getting married? Wow, congratulations, man. I'm genuinely thrilled by the good news from him, who I've been with through thick and thin. He then mentions that he'll be bringing his fiancée to our uncle's house and invites me to join them. Since I haven't seen my uncle and aunt in a while, I decide to go. Lawrence, long time no see. How've you been?
Welcome back, Lawrence.
When I arrive, my uncle and aunt greeted me with their usual warmth. It's like a gentle welcome home, as if I are their own son. The familiar warmth brings tears to my eyes and a sense of relief. Yeah, it's been a while. I've been good. Is Cliff here already? As I chat with them and head to the living room, they mention that he hasn't arrived yet. While the three of us catch up around the table, Cliff and his fiancée soon show up. My aunt and uncle hurry to the front door, and I follow suit to welcome them. Standing next to Cliff is his fiancée, a stunning woman with long, glossy blonde hair and striking features. Her name is Amber Jones. Her radiant smile is incredibly charming. I feel proud that Cliff is marrying such a beautiful woman. As we gather in the living room, enjoying the cheerful conversations, I learn that her father is the CEO of the company where Cliff works as a legal advisor. After praising Cliff's accomplishments extensively, she glances at me and asks,
Lawrence, if you don't mind me asking, what is your background?
Oh, I dropped out of high school. Having left high school to go abroad, I have no qualifications beyond that, but I feel no inferiority about it and answer honestly.
Oh, a high school dropout.
For a moment, I think I see her eyebrows twitch, but she quickly resumes her pleasant smile, so I let go of it. Time passes, and the day of Cliff's wedding arrives. I go to the venue with my aunt and uncle. Joining us is Lynn, their daughter, and my cousin. Uncle Alan keeps adjusting his tie, and Aunt Emily already has a handkerchief pressed to her eyes. They're genuinely thrilled and eagerly anticipating Cliff's big day. Seeing them, who raised us with so much love, makes my heart swell. Lawrence, is my tie straight? Yeah, it looks good.
I can't believe Cliff is getting married. He's grown up so much.
Aunt Emily, it's too early to cry.
Oh, come on, Mom and Dad, get it together.
Lynn scolds them, but her face is filled with joy. As we chat, we're led to the family waiting room. Inside are Cliff and Amber, along with her parents and several other relatives. On our side, it's just me and my uncle's family. We have other relatives, but they're mostly elderly and can't travel from the countryside to the city. Facing Amber's parents, I'm excited to meet them for the first time. I couldn't attend the wedding rehearsal due to work, so I haven't met her family members. You must be Amber's father. I'm Lawrence, Cliff's brother. Nice to meet you. I greet him, trying to keep a friendly smile. However, he glances at me briefly before turning back to his relatives, completely ignoring me. Oh, okay. Flustered by his blatant disregard, I'm relieved that Cliff and my uncle's family don't see what's happening and silently endure it. He's a jerk for sure, but it's Cliff's big day, and I don't want to spoil it for him.
Cliff looked so handsome, didn't he?
After the ceremony, as we're taking a break, Lynn comments while looking at photos of Cliff she has just taken on her phone. I peek at the screen and nod in agreement. Standing on the altar, he looks even more dashing than he did in the waiting room. My proud brother, who is smart and has an impressive title. He always defended me, even when I dropped out of high school and people criticized me. Now, I hope he can protect Amber and build a happy family with her. With warm thoughts, I head to the reception and take my seat. But the moment I see what's in front of me, my happiness vanishes, and I'm filled with rage. On the place card at my seat is written, "Useless trash." What the heck is this? Crushing the card in my hand, I quickly leave the hall to confront Cliff. Cliff, what's this about? I barge in on him and Amber as they prepare to enter the hall. What's wrong, Lawrence? He looks at me in confusion, adjusting the hem of his tuxedo. In such moments, anger often gets directed at family, and I'm furious at him. I don't even notice Amber. I'm asking what this is supposed to mean. I shout, showing him the crumpled place card. Seeing it, his eyes widen and his jaw drops. What the heck is this? He takes the place card with a trembling hand, clearly shaken. Then, I hear a woman chuckle nearby. Amber? I look at her and see a nasty, sarcastic smile. The charming, beautiful woman is nowhere to be seen now.
You want to know what it's supposed to mean? It's exactly as written. Oh, I didn't use enough words. My apologies. It's useless trash from the bottom tier, actually.
This woman. I stop myself remembering where I am, while she laughs wildly. She looks almost witch-like to me in her wedding dress. Anger wells up inside me, making me tremble. Knock it. I'm about to shout, but Cliff beats me to it. Knock it off, Amber. What the heck is going on here? I didn't agree to any of this. He yells at her, clearly furious. And phased, she looks at him coldly, sighs, and crosses her arms.
Both of you keep asking, what's going on? What's going on? It's so annoying. I told you, it's just like it says. Being a high school dropout is a disgrace.
You're a lowlife.
I want nothing to do with people from the bottom tier like you.
The unease I felt when we first discussed my background was spot on. Her true nature is revealed, and I'm left speechless. What's happening here, Amber? Then, her father rushes over, followed by her mother, struggling to run in her tight dress.
Darling, is something wrong?
Catching her breath, her mother looks at me and Cliff suspiciously, stroking Amber's back as if we're the bad guys.
Dad, Mom, I just told them the truth. This man is a high school dropout, a useless trash from the bottom tier. I was just asking him not to get involved with us.
Amber points at me with a ridiculously sarcastic smile. Her parents follow her gaze and look at me before bursting into laughter. Haha, you're right, sweetheart. A high school dropout. What a disgrace of a man. He's just a worthless piece of trash, as you say.
Exactly. I can't believe you have the nerve to show up here. It's embarrassing. By the way, I must say, you've got a real knack for naming people.
As they laugh uproariously, I stand frozen, clenching my fists and grinding my teeth. Cliff, too, is silent, standing in shock. When I glance at his face, it's twisted with anger, flushed red. I feel guilty, thinking I've ruined this special day because of my background. Do I really deserve to be insulted over my education? Do I deserve to have my character torn apart like this? I've never felt inferior about my education before, but in this moment, a pang of regret hits me. I feel almost brainwashed by Amber and her parents, overwhelmed by anger and frustration, unsure of what's right anymore. Is it my fault? Is what they say correct? My heart felt torn, and thinking about it just makes it harder to breathe. I feel sorry for Cliff, but can't stay here any longer. I'll just be a burden if I stay, so I tell myself to leave. As I turn to walk away, I hear,
Lawrence.
I turn around to see Lynn running toward me. Lynn?
Hey, hang in there. You haven't done anything wrong.
She looks into my eyes, her gaze filled with determination. Then she turns to Amber's father, glaring at him, and says to me,
Boss, let's ruin his business.
Haha, what nonsense. What's this little girl talking about? The relatives of the bottom feeders are the same themselves. He laughs through his nose, emphasizing the word bottom feeders. I gulp and look at Cliff. His face, still contorted with anger, nods to me. I take a deep breath first and pull my phone out of my pocket. Then I call a familiar number. What's this? A useless trash trying to act important and speaking in German? Amber's father sneers as I talk on the phone. Ignoring him, I hang up and walk over to him. You want nothing to do with me, right? Understood. Too bad, but I'll be terminating our contract with your company. He smirks at me. Ha, what are you talking about? Acting all high and mighty for a high school dropout. Are you playing a CEO or something? You've never had the title, have you? If you want to play make-believe, do it somewhere else. I don't want anything to do with a bottom feeder like you. Amber and her mother double over in laughter, pointing at me.
Oh geez, your brother's crazy. Has he lost his mind?
Amber laughs so hard she has tears in her eyes as she looks at Cliff. He remains silent. At this moment, Amber's father's phone rings, and everyone turns their gaze toward him. Hello. Yeah, it's me. What? Wait, hold on a second. His face is losing its color suddenly. What did you do? He hangs up the phone, his hand dropping limply to his side, then shouts at me in a panic. Seeing his reaction, Amber and her mother are no longer laughing. Instead, they stand still, clenching their fists in shock. What did I do? I just revoked your company's patent usage rights. I smile confidently, and Amber's father is left speechless, his mouth opening and closing like a fish out of water. This goes back to my high school days. I was in the science club, completely absorbed in researching and developing various materials. I enjoyed discovering new things, testing hypotheses, and developing new fields. Eventually, I wanted to bring my discoveries to life as actual products. Lawrence, I read your paper. It was truly excellent. It would be a waste to let your talent languish. You should think about presenting it to institutions worldwide, maybe during or after you graduate from university. I'm sure you'd thrive internationally. One day, my teacher called me in after reading my paper and suggested I consider aiming high. His eyes gleamed with anticipation behind his glasses, and I felt a rush of excitement. It was my chance to put everything I had worked on to use. I didn't waste any time and immediately sent my paper to some prestigious labs around the world. Lawrence. A few weeks later, my advisor came rushing in, grabbing my shoulders firmly. He was out of breath, his eyes darting nervously. You sent your paper to labs all over the world? The school received a call from Germany. I didn't expect you to act so quickly. Your initiative is impressive. Losing my parents at a young age, I had grown accustomed to thinking and acting independently. While my aunt and uncle took good care of me, I found it hard to rely on them entirely. Doing everything on my own had become second nature. My teacher scratched his head, looking troubled, and took a deep breath before speaking again. You've been accepted. What? My eyes lit up instantly, and he let out another sigh. Are you really going to take the offer? He likely already knew my answer, but asked anyway, worried. He had meant for me to aim higher eventually, not immediately. When I gave a firm yes, he looked down. Of course you are. I'm worried about you. I apologize for acting on my own, but it's thanks to you that I discovered the joy of researching and developing materials. You being my teacher made all the difference. When I expressed my gratitude, shaking his hand, he looked like he was about to cry. I later explained everything to Cliff and my aunt and uncle. Cliff was surprised but excitedly said, "If it's you, you'll make it fine." When I decided to drop out of high school and go to Germany, my uncle and aunt were initially quite shocked. However, my uncle encouraged me, saying, "Do what you are passionate about doing." My aunt, though worried like a mother, told me,
Take care of yourself and call us if you need anything.
on the day of my departure, I left with Cliff's worried smile and my uncle's family's tears behind me. It was my first time going abroad, but I didn't feel lonely. In fact, the research at the lab kept me so busy that the days flew by. I enjoyed the work immensely. High school had its limits, but at the German lab, the scope of what I could do was vast. Everything was new, and I learned something every day. Though I hadn't experienced it firsthand, I was convinced that I couldn't achieve this much back home. Sometimes I felt overwhelmed with the eternal possibilities, but I got so absorbed in my research that I forgot I was even in a foreign country. Several years later, my research finally bore fruit. After developing various materials, I secured multiple patents. I called Cliff first to share the news. "Hey man, I got the patents." "That's amazing news. I'm so proud of you. We'll celebrate with champagne when you get back." I thought I heard a slight tremble in his voice. Although he had seen me off with a smile, he must have been the most worried about me. After all, he was my only blood relative. I also called my uncle to share the news. He was just as excited, and I could hear my aunt quietly sobbing in the background. I realized that getting to that point and achieving those results wasn't just because of my efforts alone. Although I had always acted independently, I understood then that it was all thanks to the support of those around me. I had been too immature to see it before, but for the first time, I realized that we can't live alone. After obtaining the patents, I started my own company and managed the patents myself. The following year, a new secretary joined the company. When I went to introduce myself as the CEO, I saw a familiar face. "Lynn, what are you doing here?"
Come on, Lawrence, don't you know? I'm starting here as your secretary today.
I was stunned to hear that from my cousin. Wow, such a happy surprise. I was astonished to find out she was going to be my secretary, but seeing her smile confidently, I couldn't help but be excited.
You know, I actually studied abroad. Seeing you leave for overseas was so inspiring. Watching you pave your own path alone made me want to support you, so I became a secretary. Since we're family, you can talk to me easily, right?
You've grown up, Lynn. We grew up like siblings, and she had always been a curious and lively tomboy. But she was a mature woman in a suit at that moment.
Come on, you sound like an old man.
She laughed, her expression unchanged from the past. After that, she grew serious and said,
Looking forward to working with you, boss.
She stepped forward and shook my hand. Her eyes looking straight into mine, she looked dignified. She later told me that my uncle and aunt had approved taking a job at my company based in Germany because I was there. She worked efficiently and remained professional, never letting personal feelings interfere with her work. I was very grateful for her support, and now she's saving me from this horrific situation. Without her, I wouldn't have been able to do anything. You can't be serious. Amber's father finally manages to speak. He's trembling, pale, and sweating profusely. "Oh, but I am, Mr. Jones. The materials I hold patents for are used in your company's products, right? Those sales make up most of your revenue, I heard. Considering past sales and future prospects, it's worth over $1 million, isn't it?" He gasps, his large body swaying before he collapses to his knees. I find it almost amusing. Amber and her mother are flustering, pale-faced, with hands over their mouths. "Wait, please. I'm sorry. Just reconsider. Thank you for your business up to now. From this point on, I won't have any dealings with your company." As I watch him begging on his knees, I think to myself, how pathetic. No. Amber's father clutches his head in despair. I glance at Cliff, who looks back at me resolutely. Then, I explain everything to my uncle and aunt. Uncle Alan simply says, "Let's go home." Cliff stays behind to handle the aftermath, while I head out with my uncle's family. "Thank you, Lynn," I murmur on our way home, breaking the tense silence. She looks up at me, shake her head with a small smile, and softly says,
Of course.
Another silence follows, filled with various thoughts running through my mind. I don't think what I've done is wrong, nor do I regret it, but thinking about Cliff leaves me with complex feelings that don't go away. In the evening, we all eat dinner in silence. After dinner, Lynn and I keep glancing at my uncle and aunt, gauging their reactions. When I'm about to head to my room, the doorbell rings through the house. Who could it be at this hour? My uncle says suspiciously as he opens the door. "Cliff." At his voice, I hurry to the entrance to find my brother. "I need to talk." He asks us to gather in the living room. I'm really sorry for all the trouble today. As everyone sits, he apologizes sincerely. "You did nothing wrong."
That's right, Cliff. Don't be sorry.
My uncle and aunt console him gently, their brows furrow with concern. "I'm sorry too, Cliff, for causing a scene. You, of all people, did nothing wrong. We all understood none of us did." Cliff regrets choosing that woman as his fiancée, and Lynn and I regret causing a scene and ruining the wedding. My uncle and aunt are very kind people. They must regret that we got hurt and that they couldn't protect us. "I've decided to annul our marriage," Cliff says after a brief silence. I look at him in surprise, but his eyes show his determination. No one disagrees with his decision. Then he tells us what happened after we left. Mr. Jones, Amber's father, demanded that Cliff, as both the corporate lawyer and my brother, do something about the broken contract. However, he was livid at how I had been treated and threatened to sue him for defamation instead. As a corporate lawyer, Cliff is well versed in contract matters. He assures me that there will be no issues with the termination of the contract. "If he tries anything, I'll crush him," he says with a confident smile. I realize how powerful lawyers can be, but I also feel a great sense of relief having such a strong ally. As we are talking, my uncle brings out a bottle of wine and enough glasses for everyone. We all drink and talk, something we haven't done in a long time. With everyone gathered in the house, I realize how precious and important this time together is. Later, Cliff's marriage is officially annulled. It sounds simple if I just say it like that, but it's been a challenging process. Mr. Jones repeatedly contacted my company and spread false information online. It was malicious. However, each time something happened, the information was quickly taken down and the calls stopped, thanks to Cliff working behind the scenes to resolve everything. Because of his efforts, I was able to focus on my work without worry. Despite dealing with far more stress than I was, he never complained and helped me until everything was settled. He was truly admirable. Mr. Jones' company, unable to produce its main products, lost numerous contracts and was on the verge of bankruptcy. Recently, another company has decided to buy it out, and the process is already underway. I've indicated that I'll consider renegotiating when the company changes ownership, so it's only a matter of time before Mr. Jones is ousted as CEO. "Thanks for everything, Lawrence," Cliff says shyly on the day Lynn and I are returning to Germany. "We're grateful too." "Thanks, Lawrence,"
I'm so glad we didn't end up related to those people.
uncle and aunt say together. I finally feel a weight lift off my shoulders. I had been carrying guilt and regret, but now they're finally gone. Finally feeling my usual self, Lynn and I are going back to our lives in Germany. On the plane, Lynn's excited because her boyfriend is picking her up at the airport. Her boyfriend is also a researcher at my company, so I know him well. They're even talking about getting married. She says she informed her parents about it during this trip. Her mom was genuinely happy, but her dad had a more complicated reaction. I understand his feelings all too well. After what happened with Cliff, he must be unable to shake off his distrust of potential marriage partners. "I'm not against your marriage, and I'm happy for you. I know your boyfriend well, and he's a good guy. I'm just worried that you might end up in a situation like Cliff's." Trying not to dampen her happiness, I choose my words carefully. Her eyes widen, then she chuckles.
Oh, no, you sound just like Dad.
She laughs softly. Hearing this, I feel a warm connection to my uncle, realizing how much I've become like him. When our flight lands and we come out to the arrival hall, Lynn waves at a blond young man and runs to him. She jumps into his arms, smiling brightly. Watching them, I feel genuinely happy as I head home. A few months later, I've received the news of Uncle Alan's passing. When my aunt called to tell me, my mind went blank. It was acute heart failure. I had just spoken to him, saying I'd come home for Christmas. I had planned to tell him about my girlfriend, and that we were considering tying the knot. I hadn't had the chance to repay you, Uncle. I wanted to show my gratitude for all the love he had given me. Though I've tried to be a good nephew, it never felt like enough. Lynn and I rush back home, and we attend his wake and funeral. Lynn's boyfriend is at the airport to pick her up again. When he sees her tear-streaked face, his eyes get watery too. Seeing this, I'm convinced. Yeah, he's the right man. A person who can cry for someone else's loss has a kind heart. I know she's in good hands. I picture my uncle's gentle smile and swear to him, I'll look after her, Uncle Alan. You can rest easy. I realize that a family isn't just about blood ties, but about the time spent together and the trust that builds. Uncle Alan and Aunt Emily had accepted us brothers without hesitation, treating Lynn and us equally. It was really comforting. They had spent as much time with us as they did with their own daughter. As the years passed, Uncle Alan had come to feel like a real father to me. I remember the first time we drank together, he had cried and said, "You've grown so much." He was genuinely happy and worried about Cliff's marriage. I was fortunate to be taken in by such a kind-hearted man. Unlike Cliff, who had a clear and impressive path, I was different, but he always said, "Your background doesn't matter. What's important is whether you're doing what you love." Even my girlfriend now admires my dedication to my work. I know there'll be times when I'll think of him and shed tears. That's okay, because that's how people grow stronger and overcome challenges. I will carry the love he planted in my heart and cherish his wise advice as a treasure. I won't forget to live with compassion, without shame for the path I've taken, and with my head held high.